Tara Missildine and my co-host Amanda Kingsley team up and take you on a journey. One where freedom is cultivated through personal development, where women connect to fuel their futures, and where wealth is created as a byproduct of being well. And today on this episode, we are going to be talking about something super timely. Back in school. Everybody is. So, Amanda, what do you have to be grateful for before we dive into this conversation?
Well, we were just talking about her, but we have an amazing woman who Tara rallied when I think right from the very beginning of the podcast. Mm-hmm. She has been helping us get these episodes out to you. So we do the recording and Kinga works her magic. So I want to say thank you to Kinga for being our sidekick in getting this podcast to our listeners.
Oh, that's very sweet. And yes, she's been rallied to me since before we even launched this podcast.
Yeah. Because she just kind of added her. You just kind of swept the podcast in, which was amazing.
Yeah. Well, so, you know what? I have something else to be grateful for, but now I'm just going to piggyback on yours because I am beyond grateful for my Kinga. She is an absolutely phenomenal complement to everything that is me and my businesses. So she is gifted in all of the areas that I am not, and therefore I look so much better than I actually am all the time. And she is a large part of why this podcast gets published every week. Thank you for bringing that up, Amanda. Hi, Kinga. We love you.
Yeah, we love you.
Okay, so today we're talking about back to school and the impact that has and tools and tricks of the trade. And I'm gonna glean a lot from you because you've been to this rodeo a few times.
I actually don't even know if Ari is going to school this year. What's your schedule this year?
Yeah, she's 4 at the moment, so she's not going to full-time school, but she is going to several other locations. One is a play school that's located in Northampton, Bloom Cooperative Play School. Yeah. So she does go to that a couple days a week, and that's sort of like an informal, very family-based space where my office is. And then she also goes to a family daycare that's run by my mother-in-law. And then other classes and activities, but she's not in formal school. Right. Yeah. She'll be young, but I have 1 more year.
Right. I looked at the calendar just a couple days ago and I was like, holy moly, school is really soon. It's one of those years where it starts in August, and we probably have listeners who've already started. I'm starting to watch Facebook posts go up, kids who are already in school, which is crazy to me. The further south you live, the earlier you start because of the weather.
Wow.
Yeah. So we, I'd say the back in school range goes from mid-August to mid-September. And then everyone's kind of in their groove, found their place. But I looked at the calendar and it's this, every parent knows these moments where you're simultaneously elated and just you're thank goodness, school's starting again. Oh wait, that means my kids won't be with me all the time. So it's this weird dynamic. I am very excited to get back into the school routine just because working from home as somebody opens the office door and closes it is a challenge. And so having those school hours it's such a gift. It's amazing. So I'm really pumped to have kids back in school, and it's adjustment for all of us. I have a 14-year-old who adjusts to sports starting and she's going to be in high school. So there's a lot of emotional and logistical adjustment for everyone, no matter where your kids are in school. I'd say even for you, Tara, even though you're not entering that formal school system yet, the energy changes. It's people who don't celebrate Christmas still celebrate not celebrate. They still experience Christmas.
They still partake of the Christmas season.
back to school season and the entire cultural energy is changing. And so whether you're sending your kids back to school or not, there's this shift that happens this time of year for everyone, because people you know and love or people you work with are all in that transition, and their experience of life is shifting and changing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and Aria's sort of extracurriculars, so many of the opportunities
follow
tied to the school season.
Absolutely.
So, her dance class starts in September, right?
Yeah.
So, it is interesting, and I'm looking forward to next year, and at the same time, I feel like there's a certain amount of like whoa grief that I'm preparing for. I don't know. I feel like most mothers might have this sensation when their first child goes to school full time. It's like, oh my God, she is so not a baby anymore. She's not a toddler. She's not even a preschooler. Now she is a kindergartner. And it's like this whole new expectation of the way that things are shifting and how fast she's growing up. So
I will have sent all 3 of my kids to 2 years of preschool by the time Isaac gets to kindergarten. And I remember being so surprised by, it was really hard for me to send my first to preschool, but I really wanted time alone with my second. That was my inspiration. I was like, if I send her to preschool, my Mabel, who's my middle, like we will have that one-on-one alone time. Like, and that's so important. So that was really important for me. And then there's been different reasons each time, and they love school, but that just total like it's literally painful. Like you're just like a ball of mush. Like I don't want to leave them. But I was so surprised how I will say it did not really happen with the middle, but it happened again with Isaac, because it was so many years later. It was like 7 years later that I sent him to preschool.
Oh.
And it was like heart-wrenching. Like I felt like a brand new parent all again. Like I can't leave him in someone else's care.
Now this is preschool. This must be preschool that you pay for, right? That's like optional.
Yeah. We have a preschool in our school, but it is paid care. Yeah.
So it's attached, and it's full time like kindergarten, or is it a reduced?
It's totally. Our district is amazing in that they offer 3 free hours of preschool. So that's pretty cool. So there are some families who only send their kids for 3 free hours, 4 days a week.
Wow.
Then there's other families who send for a full half day. Then there's other families who send for 2 days, for 4 days, for 5 days. Like any combination of preschool you want, you can get in our school system, which is incredible.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. My girls eventually did 5 full days, which is like 9 to 3. Isaac does 4, and we're going to do 4 again. It works for us. It's nice to have a day off in the middle. Yeah. Sending your kids to school is a weird thing no matter what age they are. And we live in such I don't know what the word is. We live in such a challenging time in terms of school. And it can happen, like tragedy can happen anywhere. So anytime you're sending your kid away from you for 6 hours of the day, it's hard. And you adjust and adapt and forget about the reality of that. But not only can stuff happen, which we've seen in this country over and over and over again, out of our control, but like they are being shaped and molded and like built into human beings by this set of other adults who don't and children. Oh, good point. Hugely. Like maybe even more so.
Even the way she's influenced by other kids at her daycare and activities is amazing. Like it changes her behavior day to day, and we end up having to do like triage on certain things.
I feel like with all of my kids, there's like an adjustment after they get out of school in June where I'm like, who are you? And then we get back in our groove, with the groove that I know as a parent spending time with them, and then they go back in, and you know, again, it's another readjustment. So to me, that's what back in school is this episode for me is about like, just allow yourself the weirdness of transition. It's just like getting back in school, getting back in new routines. It's just like starting a new job. It's just like moving to a new place. It's like, just allow it to be weird and awkward. It's okay. It's normal. You're figuring it out. And if you do that with like an intention and a knowing that you're gonna find your groove, then you'll find your groove. If you resist it and get frustrated with it the whole time, it's gonna take a lot longer. So yeah, that's what back in school is to me. It's just like forgiving yourself for mistakes, experiencing all the feelings, and just being as easy on yourself as possible as you transition to this new schedule. If you're like me, you have 3 kids in 3 different schools, basically, like 3 different schedules. It's crazy, but it's awesome. And watching them learn from other people and their community and other families and kids, it brings up so much opportunity to experience life with and through them. Like,
Yeah.
you know, even the stuff you wish they were not exposed to, you're like, okay, now is the time we get to teach that lesson.
Thank you.
It has to happen.
Now we get to have that conversation.
I wasn't really ready to talk to you about sex, but now is apparently the time. Whatever it is. So it is all a gift. I'm grateful. You know, I think my kids in school is definitely dictated by finances. I don't know that we would be making the same choices we are if our financial situation was different. But I'm so grateful for what we have. Like, we have an amazing opportunity to send our kids to a really sweet place. You know, all my kids are in great schools, so.
That is wonderful. We are not so lucky, because I did quite a bit of research down here. I live in Agawam, Massachusetts, right on the Connecticut line, and a very different community atmosphere than Shelburne Falls.
Yeah.
We do not, the option that they had for sort of like the public preschool is like 2.5 hours, 2 days a week. And that doesn't even seem like it would be helpful. That feels like it would be more work to put her in this, you know, in this program. And it is not free. There are no free options. Yeah. And if you into private preschool, it's cost prohibitive for us, for sure. It's like really intense. Yeah, and it's still part-time. So it's not doable, but that's okay, because I'm not in a super hurry to like look for other options for schooling for her anyway. I feel really lucky that we have the other programs that she's involved in. Yeah. But yeah, so like I have this interesting position of being very close with my sister-in-law, whose daughter is exactly 10 years older than Aria. Mm-hmm. For Aria's whole life, I've kind of gotten to like gauge where Haley's at 10 years later. Yeah. And she's been very transparent with me about some of the things that she's gone through in school. And I've seen the way that, you know, sort of her schooling and her activities have shaped her. And part of me is absolutely terrified. And the other part of me is like, I am glad that I have a decade to prepare myself for these conversations, because I see how fast the world moves right now, and I also can't imagine what else is going to shift and evolve in the next decade.
Right.
How much has changed in the previous decade.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's an entirely different landscape for kids, and especially in terms of technology and.
Yeah, my kids are 10 years apart, my oldest and my youngest. So it's the same gap.
Same.
Yeah, so
fun for the dogs barking like crazy.
My oldest will be in college when my youngest goes into 7th grade. We'll be almost out of college. It's like it is, and so much changes. So much changes so fast. It's wild. Another thing, like, I think parents should forgive themselves for is there's this like weird, I don't know, this like the story we tell ourselves that it's going to be easier once they're older and in school, because, oh, you have all this time.
And to be independent.
I just want to say that story is not true. That it, and I am 3 kids in.
No barking.
It's different. It is different. And in some ways, different is easier. And in some ways, different is harder. So just because they go to school does not make it easier. I found it much easier to transport a baby around in a car seat than to manage schedules of sports and school and all that stuff. So, yeah, we can barely hear that puppy. Everyone listening understands and loves dogs, so don't you fret. I'm watching Tara's face like, the dog. I'm like, no, let the dog go.
My home office is set up at the top of the landing of our sort of entryway. So it's the second floor landing.
Yeah.
Stairwell goes down right here, and she's barking at the front door at the mailman, I think. So it's like echoing.
Don't you worry. Our listeners understand. I know they do. Yeah. Do you have any questions about what it's like to send your kids to school? Because those might be helpful for our listeners.
Well, I certainly do. I want to know what kinds of, particularly routines or rituals you have that actually reconnect your family or keep your family connected when you are spending so much time apart and in totally different locations. Like, what do you do to keep your family connected?
That's interesting you asked that, because our family dinner schedule is so much more solid in the school year than it is during the summer. Like, summer is just a little different. It's like a totally different routine. And we don't sit down to family dinner in exactly the same way we do during the school year. Even if we do, it doesn't have the same feel, doesn't have the same energy. And we don't have family dinner where we have a formal routine. I know some people do. I have tried implementing like a pull a question from the jar, or like that has never really flown in my house as much as I like the concept of it. But simply just sitting down together is so important. And you'd be shocked how many families don't have dinner together. So that becomes even more important during the school year than it is during the summer. And it just ties everyone back together at the end of the day in a really, really awesome way. I'm going to say that is the only really, that and weekends. Weekends really do change. Weekends become, because now weekends, Dad's home, which is awesome because Dad works all week. But we've been together all week, 24 hours a day, mostly, other than play dates. And weekends are just like every other day. So weekends and family dinners take on a whole new face once the school year starts, and become much different, like energetic spaces.
Yeah. So do all of your kids love going to school, or have you ever had any times where there's a sense of dread of summer vacation ending?
Yeah, we've had both. We have had dread that summer vacation is starting. There's our timer. This year in particular, my teenager was like, are you kidding me? Like, how am I going to, because they're not quite driving. Yeah. And they're also
14, is that right?
She just turned 14.
Yeah.
Really, really wanting to spend time with friends. Mm-hmm. So she had a really hard time with summer starting. And I think is really excited to go back to school and be with friends and be in sports. So we've had it on both ends. I have never had full on kicking, screaming, I hate school, I don't want to go to school, but I have I have with my preschooler on random days, but nothing consistent, nothing we had to really overcome. I feel for those parents because that's really challenging. And my advice to those parents would just be remain really curious. Just ask lots of questions like, what are you feeling? What do you want it to feel like to go to school? how can we shift things? It's like, there's some great books. I just started reading How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen.
Yeah.
Talk So Kids Will Listen. There's one about siblings, but I can't even think of their names. Faber. We'll put a link in the show notes. But I would say dig into those books for support if your kids are struggling with going to school, because there's always a story underneath. So figure out what that is and find good adults to talk to about it.
Mm-hmm.
We've just had a moderate amount of, I don't want to go to school, which we just manage and move through. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for answering those questions. I'm looking forward to coming up with my own answers too, but it's
yeah, it's a big shift. So lean in. Anyone who's in any kind of school transition, lean into your friends who've done it, and it will not be the same. But just absorb what you can from their experience and weave it into your own, because you're going to have your own experience is going to be totally different.
Cool.
All right. He asks for you today.
Yes, I actually, on kind of a similar note, I would love to know what the best activities you have put your kids in, like to listeners, not just you, Amanda.
Yeah.
What have been the most positive, influence activities on your kids? My daughter is age 4, so anything like in that age range would be most appreciated by me, but like, is it dance or gymnastics or, sports or horseback riding or kung fu?
Yeah.
There's a million choices.
Right. So true.
Try all of them. So yeah, what have you done and loved with your family?
I love that. So I want to hear those answers too. You'll have to pass them on to me. And then I guess I'm curious, because I have a 14-year-old and because she's going to be driving soon, for those who have teenagers who have hit that 16, 18 mark, like what are the bucket list important things that I should be checking off the list as we enter this last stage of parenting? Yeah. All right, everybody.
Till next time.